What do you do when your career that looks perfect on paper or on LinkedIn stops feeling right on the inside? Bianca Riemer, our guest today, spent a decade as a top ranked equity research analyst at Morgan Stanley before pivoting into executive coaching and energy healing. She is
Mm.
proof that reinvention doesn't mean starting over, it means integrating everything you already are. Bianca, welcome. I'm so excited for us
Hey,
to have this conversation.
Megan, I'm so excited to be here with you today.
So when I saw your profile and had your information in front of me, you said that this isn't a shift that seems to, it looks like two different people on the page. You know what I mean? Going
Yeah,
from this research analyst to an energy healer. And I have to say, I am obsessed with the show industry. Have you been watching this show on HBO?
not
Okay.
that much, no.
No, okay. So industry is like banking and they're like shorting stocks and all this stuff. And I get secondhand anxiety watching this show. So knowing that you were a research analyst at Morgan Stanley that moved into executive coaching and energy healing actually makes a lot of sense to me. I,
Yeah,
I feel like that world must destroy your nervous system. Like,
colleagues of mine are telling me that it's based on real people that used to work at Morgan Stanley
no way. Oh my
before I
gosh.
joined. So
Pure point. Yeah, pure point
it's a
Morgan
little bit
Stanley.
too close for me. But yes, it depends on the type of person you are. I mean, it's a very fast-paced environment,
Mhm.
and people are really focused on making money but they're also making money for clients. So that is the focus, and that's what everybody works towards. And if you're I knew a lot of people there who were there for 10, 15, 20 years and absolutely loved it because you get a buzz every time you help a
Oh,
client. And that's what people love about it. And working in
yeah.
financial markets, yes, it's a roller coaster. But if you love it, you're going to have the time of your life. And I loved it for many years that I was there. I couldn't have imagined doing anything else. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved the markets. I got a buzz out of getting things right and helping clients, providing insights to clients. So even though from today's point of view, it was a stressful job, it didn't feel unmanageably stressful at the time, most of the time.
Yeah. And it's interesting because watching the show, I was like, this is like gambling. Like this is, and there's a character in the show who has a gambling issue. And I was like, yeah, I can imagine why. But when did you decide to make this transition, or when did it start not feeling fulfilling for you?
Yes, so it became more fulfilling actually the longer I did it because, well, at the beginning it was quite hard because you have to get used to it and you have to get used to the stress levels, the lack of empathy, let's put it like that, and just get a thick skin. Once you have a thick skin, as people call it in that industry, so you become Teflon woman,
Yes.
if you like, and you just focus on your job and helping clients, it became more and more fulfilling. And I became more and more an expert in my niche, which then became more attractive to lots of people as the niche was growing. So my job was to call people, but people were calling me. So I loved it. And especially after my first child and I went back to work, all the little things stopped affecting me so much because my focus was also on being a mother to my child. So I stopped caring so much about all the little things that people find stressful. And that helped me excel in that job because I was even more focused on what really matters in that job. But the big turning point came after I had my second child. Both of my parents had died. The mortgage was paid off. We moved house. And also there was a situation at work whereby our team was overstaffed and everybody's elbows came out like that just to keep spirits high. So, and I remember sitting at my desk looking out of the window and the screens, I had various screens, they were all flashing numbers at me, which I used to find very exciting. You mentioned gambling and it was a little bit like that. And I looked out of the window, I saw the speedboat on the River Thames in London because we're based near Tower Bridge, basically. In Canary Wharf, I saw the speedboat. Beyond Tower Bridge, the speedboat really does become a speedboat. And I was like, yeah, I used to like the stock market, but I actually want to be on that speedboat. I want to live life. I don't want to be sitting in this office 12 hours per day. And also the fact that my parents died and I just become a parent myself. I thought a lot about, what do I actually want my life to be about? Do I want it to be about guessing share prices? Or do I actually want to be a mother? Do I want to be a wife? How much more is there to life? How much more can I give? That's not just giving financial advice to somebody and growing their wallets. Maybe there's also other ways in which I can help people grow their hearts as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And so, did you know from that moment with the speedboat, like what was your next step in terms of determining what you wanted to do? Was that surprising to you at all? Did you have any resistance to yourself having that feeling? Okay, I need to start exploring what this means for me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I knew that I didn't want to sit in an office for
Mm,
the rest of my life. And at the time, I had a business idea, basically. And I was thinking about the business most of the time. It was a product-based business, and it was something that exists in the US. And I thought, hey, maybe the European market is just behind and it's got potential. So I spent a lot of time and energy in exploring that business idea. And I even started creating the product and started creating the marketing as well. And I left banking because I was so passionate about that product and about my target customer, helping my target customer. At the time, I really believed that that product would help my target customer. Then after I left, it all changed. But that was the main reason. I thought I'm not going to die not knowing whether this product would work in Europe.
mhm. Wow. And so I love that you were thinking about that and moving forward with that. And then how did you get into this work of helping executives and energy healing? And is that the right term for it, energy healing?
Yes. So it's a particular type of energy healing that's called pranic healing.
Mhm.
And
What does
even
that
though many
mean? Yeah.
people might think it's based on intuition and completely different from the scientific work I used to do in banking, it's actually very scientific. And the National Health Service here in the UK has now done medical studies as well with 84% medical effectiveness. So it's highly effective. But anyways, I would have never thought back in the days that I would ever do anything like this.
Yeah.
I had a secret fascination with it and I'd read books about it and I had mystical experiences when I was younger, but I always saw myself as somebody who's in business. I
Yeah.
grew up with business. My parents had their own business. I was always going to be somebody who does something commercial. How did I end up as a coach and a pranic healer? It was swings and roundabouts, really. So the first thing that happened is that the product, nobody was interested in it.
Mm,
Let's be honest. But I was still very passionate about helping my target customer, which was new moms. So I trained as a health coach. I trained as a hypnotherapist. I
mm,
trained as a pranic healer. I went on all the Tony Robbins seminars. I learned all about neurolinguistic programming and
mm,
coaching, etc. And I really wanted to work still with new moms.
mhm.
But because my personality is so dynamic and so investment banking or industry,
Yeah.
like the new moms were kind of scared of me and they didn't want to. I'd approach them at, say, breastfeeding cafe and they go, yeah, I think I really need to talk to the midwife instead of you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember having a breakdown in a coaching session, a group coaching session actually, and it was recorded. And then, I was crying, and I never cried in front of other people because when you work in investment banking, that's not something you do.
I'd rather
That's
die
like
than cry
career
at work.
suicide
Yes. Yeah.
at
I
work.
I get it. Yeah.
So I cried on video in front of other
Good
people,
for
and then other
you.
people
Yeah.
watched the recording and they reached out to me saying, "Are you okay?" And this never happened to me before. I mean, in investment banking, if you cry, it's like, "Oh, she is
Sure. Yeah.
not suitable for the job." So, anyways, and then I said, okay, I'm just gonna be minded now and let's see who wants to work with me. And it ended up being entrepreneurs and also then executives who really valued what I can bring to them. So it was technical experts who wanted to be more communicative, and it was women who wanted to survive in a man's world.
Mhm.
So that's where I started. And then I brought in the energy healing over time.
Yeah. That's so cool. And as a fellow intense person, I appreciate that. It's funny because what we do is, and I've got to get away from the word woo, but a lot of people like us would think that what we're doing is a little bit woo. It's so necessary, right? It's that full 360 of if you are going to be successful at your job, you need to have the other side of it, of this
Mm.
grounding. And feeling okay. And if, let's say, you love the 14-hour days and dealing with tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's money, that's a lot
Mm,
of stress you have to be able to ground yourself within that. So it's not will, but when you approach entrepreneurs and executives and let them know that you're a pranic healer, how do you not turn them off? What is the
yeah.
general reaction, or what is your approach to them so that they can understand that without being like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't lead with the pranic healing
Yeah.
at all. What usually tends to happen is that I've either shared one of my healing stories
Hmm.
with them, and they then approach me months or years later because they've tried everything else. And then it's like, oh,
Hmm.
Bianca, she told me about her niece who used to have leukemia. She told me about her son who used to have eczema, and her female clients who used to have PTSD. And let's give it a try. So
Hmm.
that's like people who know me, they know my stories, and they reach out as and when they have something that's unsurmountable for them. But most of my executive coaching clients, at some point, there will be a time where they're so stressed they can't have a coaching session. I have too many things to do. I'm so stressed. I'm
Right.
going to cancel the session. That's when I come in and say, well, 24-hour cancellation policy, you have to pay me anyways. So I'm just going to do healing for you
Yeah.
for stress and anxiety. And I encourage them to just sit for 10 minutes and with their arms and legs uncrossed and just be open.
Hmm.
And I do the treatment for them. It can be done remotely. We don't even have to be on video. It
Yeah.
works with intention. And it's a technique and protocol based thing. And most executives, even though they're not intuitive, they don't see themselves as intuitive, they don't think that they're sensitive. Most of them say, hey, I feel more relaxed. And
Yeah.
that's when then they become more curious and say, explain the mechanism. And there is a mechanism that can be explained.
That's
Many of them train as pranic healers. Just want to
funny.
know.
And what is the mechanism? Like, how do you explain that to them?
Yes. So the mechanism of pranic healing is based on the premise that there is an energy body, invisible energy body, which looks just like our physical body. And the energy body is the blueprint for the physical body. So any illness, whether it's a psychological ailment or a physical ailment, shows up in a certain pattern in the energy body. The energy body exists of energy wheels that breathe energy just like your lungs breathe air, and energy channels that connect the energy wheels to each other. Or energy wheels are chakras and the channels are meridians. So we have 269 chakras on our body. In pranic healing, we work with the major 11 ones. And disease will show up as a congestion or over and under activation of chakras relative to each other. So what we do in pranic healing is we remove dirty, diseased energy and congestion from the chakras in a very specific pattern depending on the ailment. There's a book with lots of protocols that I follow. And then after we've removed the dirty, diseased energy, we re-energize the person's body with clean, fresh energy from the environment.
Mhm.
So then the body can heal itself, because it's always the body that heals itself. Even if you break a bone, it's not
Right.
the cast. It's the body that heals itself. You're just creating better conditions for the bone to grow back properly by putting a cast and maybe some screws, etc. So pranic healing is there to support medical treatment as well. So it's a complementary therapy that speeds things up.
And that makes total sense. And if anybody's listening to this and is like, oh my God, what are they talking about? Like, think about it this way. We've all experienced stress at various levels. I mean, I used to literally have my shoulders up to my ears all the
Mm,
time, and I still carry a lot in my shoulders,
mm,
but we've all experienced that, right? And that stress, you understand what that energy is. And now imagine, I can only imagine a lifetime of, we all have stress and we all have things that we've held onto or not addressed. So it makes a lot of sense. The other thing that you said that I love is the body wants to heal itself. The
mm.
natural instinct of the body is to heal itself. And yes, we have medicine and all kinds of wonderful modern science to help us with that. But also, this work feels like it's such a nice complement to it. I was just thinking about yoga and how yoga really is such a complement for me in my life to everything else that I do to stay healthy. And the most important part of it is what's going on in my head and how I can release. So that's amazing. And when I can imagine what they must feel like after a session, and this probably varies from person to person, but do they get the results of that from the first session, or sometimes are there people that are a little bit more buttoned up and it takes a little bit longer?
Yes, it depends on how sensitive and self-aware the person is. So the most notable thing that ever happened to me is that I started working with a little boy who had been out of school for many, many months. He'd had a tummy bug and was sick for a couple of weeks, but afterwards it was mainly the trauma.
Mm.
And he had pain in his tummy, and the diagnosis he had was gut brain, which is basically a diagnosis when the doctors don't know what's going on because there's nothing physical that they can see in the tummy area. So the first ever treatment I did for this young boy, he was 11 or 12 at the time. He was very timid. I went to his house. He was sitting on a sofa, and I was trying to cheer him up a little bit. He's a very shy little boy, obviously completely traumatized by the whole experience. He didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to go to parties or school or anything like that. And I just, at the beginning of the treatment, I just cleansed the central chakra line. I do what's called an aura sweep. So I just sweep the aura very, very gently. And I got a reaction from him as I did that. Like the first thing I do, he goes like this. I'm like, oh, there's a reaction from you. What's happening? And he said, it's gone. I'm like, what's gone? He's like, the pain. It's gone. So it's the first 30 seconds of the treatment, and the treatment is an hour. It's the first 30 seconds of the treatment. The mom was sitting next to him. She's like, oh, yeah, he drank some tea before the session. She's like trying to explain what is happening. So, but I'm not the only pranic healer who's had this experience. There's, when I was speaking to my colleagues, when there are these psychologically caused pains in the body, especially with children compared to adults with a lifetime of trauma and stress energy absorption, especially with children, you just start the treatment, you do the general sweep, and you're already taken substantial amounts of stress and trauma energies out of the system, which are the energies that are causing the pain. Taking these negative energies out of the system, and the person feels a relief. And that's what happened to this young boy. So we continued with the treatments because he really noticed the difference. The mother didn't understand what was happening, but he was back in school after a few weeks. It was phenomenal after not being in school for 6 months, and the medication, you know, only working, helping so much. So, and the medical trials then that we did here in London at the hospital, they had over 100 people in the trials, young people with chronic pain. Many of them had gone through a series of operations. They were on medication for the physical pain, psychological conditions as well. And the doctors at that hospital are the world's experts in gastro issues. So these young people have been with them for many, many years, in treatment with them many years, and no improvement. And 84% of the participants in the study were completely symptom-free after 8 weekly treatments of pranic healing. Wow. Completely free of all symptoms, of all medication. There were young children in the trials who hadn't been to school for many years because they were throwing up or going to the toilet several times per day. And the family, one family, they went on a family holiday for the first time ever. Wow. So that is just too big to ignore, to talk about it. So it's incredibly fulfilling to be able to help people like that. And anybody can learn pranic healing, you know, even accountants and stockbrokers like myself.
Right. And is this similar or different to Reiki?
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. What is the difference between the two?
Okay, so imagine I have a glass of water here. Imagine you have, this glass is filled with Coca-Cola, and you want to have water in it. So nothing against Coca-Cola, but let's just imagine Coca-Cola represents illness in your body. So with Reiki, in Reiki, they just energize the body with divine energy, and then expect the divine energy to sort out the condition. So it's the equivalent of holding this glass of water underneath a running tap, the glass of Coca-Cola underneath a running tap, and then expecting the glass to, over time, you know, if you hold it under the running tap long enough, probably most of the Coca-Cola will have been replaced with water. It takes a while. Pranic healing does two things. First of all, we get rid of the diseased energy. So we basically empty the Coca-Cola into the sink, rinse the glass properly with water, and then fill it up with water. So we're taking the dirty energy out of the system, and we're then making sure it's really clean as can be, and then we fill it up with divine energy. So it tends to be very fast and very effective.
And when you say divine energy, what does that mean?
So in pranic healing, we work with prana. Prana is life force energy. It's a Sanskrit word. So there's different types of prana. There's solar prana, which is from the sun. There's air prana, which is from the air. And there's ground prana, which is from the ground. And the human body absorbs these types of prana. Now, as human beings, we can also channel another type of prana, which is divine energy. And there's a mechanism that you learn on the pranic healing courses to channel that energy. You can amplify it by doing regular meditations as well. And it increases the amount of life force energy in the person's body. And contrary to solar, air, and ground prana, it has a consciousness of its own. So it amplifies the body's natural ability to heal itself.
Interesting. Very cool. And how do you protect your energy? How do you do that?
That's a really great question, because what a lot of people aren't aware of is that when I do a healing on another person, our energy fields merge. Well, to a certain extent, the light in my hand will connect to the light in their body.
Mhm.
So if the person is very sick, some of the sick energy will come back into my hand when I energize the person.
Mhm.
Also, when I take the sick energy out of the system, of course, I'm touching the energy, right? So how do I prevent contamination? What we do in pranic healing, which a lot of other energy modalities don't seem to do, is we spray our hands with a solution of alcohol and lavender. Now, the reason why we're using alcohol and lavender is because these are substances that have clairvoyantly been validated to break up the deceased energy and disintegrate it. I have a bowl of water with salt in it.
Mhm.
That is what keeps the environment clean. And I also use it to throw the dirty energy from the person into that salt water bowl. And because the water draws energy, the salt then disintegrates the dirty energy. And that way also my environment stays nice and clean.
Mhm.
So those are two things that I use to protect myself. There's a few other things I do. And one other thing that I can talk about is I do regular twin hearts meditations.
Mm.
And this is open to the public. So you don't need to go on a pranic healing course to benefit from the twin hearts meditation. Here in the group in the UK, and also where you are, Megan, in the US, there is meditation on twin hearts groups everywhere. They tend to be free or donations based, and they tend to be run by volunteers who are very, very passionate about bringing pranic healing and the twin hearts meditation to as many people as possible. And I also have a group here locally. And what's amazing is that people come who have never meditated before, and people come who have OCD or ADHD, or who say, I've tried meditation, I haven't been able to do it. I always have so many thoughts.
Mhm.
And what's amazing about the Twin Hearts meditation is that it has been specifically designed to help flush out enormous amounts of stress and trauma energies from the system. And when I first did it, I mean, I always had anger issues and I always had relationship issues. I never seemed to really get on very well with other people in my younger years. And as soon as I did the Twin Hearts meditation regularly, people all of a sudden started being very nice to me. I'm like, oh, people have changed. This was when I was still in the banking world.
Yeah.
So then as I progressed in pranic healing, I realized, oh, it's because I have changed.
Yes. Yeah.
People are being nicer to me. So my energy then, because I was flushing out all these stress energies in the Twin Hearts meditation, I started radiating more love.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people smile at me. And in the streets of London, people
Yeah.
smile at me. And so the Twin Hearts, that's what it does. And people with ADHD, they find it incredible because they're able to flush out all that negativity from their system. And I once had a lady, she looked very distressed when she came to the meditation. She got pulled along by one of her friends who thought, hey, this might be good for you.
Yeah.
Had some issues she was going through a divorce, I think, or there was something wrong with her relationship with her husband or ex-husband. She was a different person when she woke up from the meditation. It's a 20-minute meditation, so it's nothing too long. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I just wanted to scream during the meditation. I felt so much joy in my body."
Wow.
And she said, "I was able to let go of all the hatred against my husband or ex-husband.
Yeah.
And I felt so much love for my children." And she
Wow.
had the biggest smile in the world on her face. So stories like this give me reassurance that I'm not just imagining
Right,
it.
right. What a gift. I mean, what a gift to release that anger and to release that negativity. And
Mm.
what does twin hearts refer to?
Yeah, that's a good question because a lot of people seem to think, "Oh, do you have to come with a guy?"
Yeah. Well,
Do you
immediately
have
I
to
was like, not twin flames, right? Like which
No,
one gets all.
exactly. So, no, the Twin Hearts meditation, we're working with the body chakras.
Mhm.
So, the first heart is the heart chakra, which is the chakra in the middle of your chest, is the chakra that's psychological function of the heart chakra is love for other people, right? That is the first heart chakra. We're activating the heart chakra during the meditation. Then the second heart chakra is your crown chakra, which is at the top of your head.
Mhm.
Now, the psychological or spiritual function of the crown chakra is love for everything.
Mhm.
So, what happens during the Twin Hearts meditations, we are activating the heart chakra, then we're activating the crown chakra with positive thoughts and energies. And then we're raising our hands, we're blessing planet Earth with lots of positive energy and basically asking for blessings that any negative energies may be replaced with positive energies. And what the words of the meditation and do, it's a guided meditation, and we're using the words of a spiritual teacher called Master Choa Kok Sui, because his voice then channels a lot of divine energy. And some people can feel it, some people's bodies start moving because the energy coming in, or they feel like a shiver down their spine,
Mhm.
etc. What happens is that with the words, it's like a prayer of alchemy. So all the negative emotions come forth in people's chakras, and then the divine energy that comes through as you bless planet Earth flushes out all those negative emotions, and then positive emotions get downloaded.
Mhm.
So that is something that people become aware of, depending on how sensitive they are during the meditation. And you're not just flushing out your own system, because you're channeling energy towards the planet Earth, everybody, the
Yeah.
whole of humanity, all animals, all plants, all minerals, and whoever else is here,
Yeah.
all being blessed because you're asking for blessings for all of these. There's a lot of energy coming through you. And that it was the Twin Hearts that got me interested in pranic healing, because one of the masters was a Tony Robbins event.
Mhm. And so you were still an analyst when you experienced the twin hearts. Were you studying prana at that point, or so
No.
what got you to that?
Yeah, so it was when my life was falling apart when my parents died,
Mm.
and when my
And
career, I
yeah.
wasn't interested in my career anymore. That's when I was desperate enough to go to a Tony Robbins event. And I was like, I didn't really, I have to admit, I didn't really like him very much. I was like, who's this American guy with fake teeth and a big voice? Sorry, sorry to be negative,
Yeah,
but
it's all right. It's okay.
I was like, okay, and oh my gosh, it's 2,400 pounds for a
Yeah.
ticket
Yeah.
on the plastic seat.
Yeah.
But somebody, my soul probably gave me a kick in the backside to
Yeah.
go there for some reason, right? Because I
Interesting.
was
Yeah.
quite depressed. I'd had my first therapy session, and I needed something was shaking me. So I walked over the hot coals, felt amazing. And Tony Robbins has all these external speakers. And on the fourth day, there was Master Ko, who is a pranic healer. And he
Mhm.
did the twin hearts with us. And he actually did an experiment with us. So he taught us how to feel energy, feel the spiritual energy that's coming into a person's head. And he then got the person who was sitting down, so my partner, she was sitting down, she was blessing just her family, then her country, and then the world. And he said, you just continue scanning the energy that's coming into her. And the more people she was blessing, the more energy was coming into her. And I was like, I'm a stockbroker, I'm an accountant. This can't be possible. But I could feel this energy. And then I was looking around in the Excel Center in London, and there was 12,000 people or something there. So 6,000 people standing up, scanning their partner's energy. And we all had our arms as wide as they can be. So that's when I thought, hey, there must be something to this, because clearly I'm not just imagining it. And also, my analytical mind was like, did he prime us to
Mm,
this? Did he plant any seeds
right.
to tell us there's more energy coming, the more people? But there wasn't. So this was real for me at the time. And then 9 months later, I went to my first pranic healing course,
Cool.
and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I used to be super skeptical of all this stuff, right? Like, which
Mm.
is so funny because in my journey, and I've talked about this, like I was raised Catholic. Let me tell you something. I love the pomp and circumstance. I love a prayer. I like love praying out loud in a group and the rosary and all
Yeah.
like I love that. It's all energy. It's all energy. But so anyway, I was totally skeptical of all this stuff for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then it hit me, and I was like, when you're at a sporting event and like people are going nuts, it's all the energy. I can
Yeah.
shift energy in a room. And I'm one of these people that like everyone talks to me. I love it. I'm very open to that. Like I've never met a stranger. I was like, wait a minute. I can shift energy in a room, in a boardroom by smiling and how I'm projecting. And you can see it in people's faces. They start to lean in, and vice versa. If someone enters a room and has a bad attitude, everybody's kind of like, you know? So it's interesting how we meet this with resistance, even though we experience it every single day in our lives.
Absolutely.
So it is interesting. And so I hope that people have stuck with us because you can start to see it. Once you start to see it, you can't unsee it. That's the thing. I played an instrument for a very long time. And when in jazz and orchestral settings, and so a lot of musicians, and when you are in the pocket, when you are all just in the zone in music, it is a feeling that I've never experienced before until I got into meditation and guided meditation. It is that energy of feeding off of each other. We're all aligned, we're all in flow, we're all, you know, it's really cool. So I do want to come back to you said you had mystical experiences as a child. Are you okay talking about that? What that was?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because at the time, it just felt so strange to everybody. And people like, oh, not going to talk to Bianca anymore, because it was just so weird.
Oh my gosh.
Right. But with what I've learned in pranic healing and then also done some further reading, it's a mechanism. So I tell you what happened. So I'm sitting in my Latin class, and I had a bit of a crush on my Latin teacher. He was like my granddad's age, and they were actually friends, as I found out later. But anyways, I thought he was pretty cool. I wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
So this matters, by the way, but I'll tell you why in a bit. I was sitting at the front. I was one of the key kids. I was like, pick me, pick me. As soon as the question was asked, I was there with my hand up. And so I raised my hand. It's like a normal class. I raised my hand. He says, yes, Bianca. And I already noticed the other kids were a bit like, hmm? I say the answer. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's the right answer. And the expression on the kids' faces is like, what the? And then he says, but the thing is, Bianca, I haven't asked the question yet. And it was like, it wasn't a yes, no type of question. It was asking about something very specific from the Latin world that
Yeah.
you don't read in a newspaper or in a
Right.
textbook. So what happened?
Yeah.
How was I able to have the right answer to like a Latin question that he hadn't even asked? And as I learned about pranic healing and then also learned about energy, what actually happens is that thoughts are real and thoughts are not inside the brain, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I really liked that teacher, I had a connection to him. I was picking up his thoughts subconsciously, I was like, oh, there's his thought, and grabbed it. I became aware of his thoughts. So I had become aware of the answer to the question, because before somebody formulates a question in a class, they have to think of the answer. So the answer became conscious to me, and I raised my hand. And that's basically how I always knew all of the answers to this teacher's questions. If listeners want to find out more about that, there is a really great author. His name is Charles Ledbetter. He's a Victorian writer from the UK, and he was basically working in the church. And then he went to India to train with theosophy, and that's how then he became highly clairvoyant. And he writes in a style that is very accessible. It's a very simple language, and he explains all these things. He writes about dreams, about death, about thought forms. There's a really great book by him that he wrote together with Annie Besant called thought forms, and it shows you what thoughts look like.
Interesting.
So we are all partially clairvoyant. I was very clairvoyant as a child. I was able to look through walls.
Mhm.
I still have an experience of that as well. And then we lose it as soon as the mind kicks in when we're about 5 years old. We start thinking about stuff and reading things and being very focused on physical things that we can see and touch and smell. But if you ever spend time around a dog, a cat, or a young child under the age of 5, and they're doing weird stuff,
Little kids are weird.
that seems weird to us
Little kids
adults.
are
It's
weird.
like they,
They
they
see
are aware
things.
of
Yeah, yeah,
other things that we ignore because it's not something we can put in a box
right.
and touch and smell, but it's there. And so that's one mystical experience from my early days. Got myself into trouble once, and then a person appeared and helped me as well.
Oh, wow.
My understanding now is that that was my guardian angel, because guardian angels, apparently the way they look is they look like a 10-year-old child wearing rags. And I remember at the time I thought it was Jesus, because I also grew up a Christian. And I remember criticizing him for having a bad taste in fashion.
That's really funny.
But basically, I was going to do something very, very naughty and destructive. And the person appeared, showed me my diary, said, "Aren't you curious what's going to happen next?" And that's when I changed my mind and did something else instead. Now I know that that was somebody whose responsibility is to keep me alive.
I want to talk about the nervous system hijacking intelligence. Like, I guess the question is, how have you seen the nervous system in these high stakes, high pressure situations? Like, how does that hijack our brain? And what does that actually look like in a boardroom? And what can someone who's maybe experiencing that sort of like adrenaline rush, that fight or flight moment, can you talk a little bit about that and how people can center themselves in those moments?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so why does our nervous system get hijacked in these high pressure environments?
Faith.
And it even happens to people who've got nothing to do with the actual business decision that's being made. So say the PA who's
Mhm.
there to take the minutes, she will also feel it. She or
Right,
he will also feel it.
right,
So it's like an energy that is in the room. Some of us become very aware of it after the high stakes meeting has happened, because
right.
the energy, the stress energy that people produce in that meeting is still in the room.
Yeah. When you're
That's
like,
why
get me out
sometimes,
of here. Yeah. Like,
yeah, that's why sometimes some of us will become very aware of, oh, I don't like it in this room. It's because somebody else has maybe had an argument or had a very stressful situation in that room. It's because the energy is still there. Okay, so what can we do, right? Because when we're in this high stakes meeting, even when we're not involved, we're feeling the stress energy. And the stress energy basically lives at the top of our tummy in the so-called solar plexus chakra. That is the chakra that's responsible emotionally for what's called our lower emotions. And that's the chakra that gets triggered in these high stakes environments. And when the solar plexus is bigger than the heart chakra, we feel stressed. And then the body will have a physiological reaction as well. So the first thing you can do already is to regularly do the twin hearts meditation, because what happens during the twin hearts meditation is your heart chakra expands over and above the solar plexus. And as soon as that happens, the person feels relaxed and the person feels a sense of what's called inner peace. That's what everybody wants.
right.
That no money in the world can buy you is the sense of inner peace. So by regularly doing the twin hearts meditation, you automatically be able to regulate that stress response in those high stakes
Yeah.
situations. Also, your relationships will improve, as they did
Yeah.
with me and lots of my clients who do the twin hearts meditation and the pranic healings. Now, when you're in the actual meeting and you realize, oh my gosh, I feel stressed, what you can do is you can reverse engineer a relaxed state by holding your body differently. So if you think about it, when we're stressed, we have a tendency to make ourselves small, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
shoulders up, like you mentioned earlier,
Yep.
Megan. And what you can do is you can consciously move your shoulders away from your ears. You can spread your feet further than hip distance apart. You can open your arms if you feel safe to do that, or you have one arm in front of your solar plexus if you're feeling attacked. That will also stop negative energy from affecting you as much. And then very Too simple to be true, but very effective way of clearing your solar plexus of all that junk energy that you don't want is to breathe deep abdominal breaths. So most people do chest breathing. As adults, we do a lot of chest breathing because we hold too much tension in our solar plexus, and it feels like that's as far as the air will go. But if you practice deep abdominal breathing, either in the mornings or in the evenings when you're in bed,
Mhm.
is basically your belly will expand as you inhale. This is really important. Is what a lot of adults struggle to get their head around, is that your tummy expands as you inhale. Your
Yeah,
chest stays more or less the same.
I'm trying it now.
Why? Right?
Yeah.
Why should this happen? It's because when we inhale and the tummy expands, that's when the diaphragm, which is the muscle that's underneath the lungs, expands into the tummy area and the belly goes big. That's when we're actually using the full capacity of our lungs for breathing. And so what happens physiologically is that we absorb more oxygen and we expel more CO2. So our blood gets cleansed. Also, what happens is that our solar plexus chakra expels a lot of that junk energy, and the solar plexus relaxes and can normalize again. And our nervous system relaxes as a result of that. So when I teach this to my executive coaching clients, because a lot of people come to me for executive presence, I say, just breathe into your belly. When they do that, they feel that they get the feedback from their colleagues that they had a lot of presence in that meeting. It's just the breathing, because your voice will change as well. And then also connecting the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth. That also does a lot. It helps you keep saliva in your mouth and stop the mouth from drying up too much, which often happens when we're stressed. Or you can take a bit of a sip of water and just keep it in your mouth. But also, more importantly, it closes an energy circuit in your system. So when you connect the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, it's like closing a circuit, and the person will have more energy, more presence, more executive presence immediately. So in pranic healing, when you learn to scan already in your first pranic healing course, this is one of the things that you learn to validate with scanning. So you scan the person's energy, then the person connects the tip of the tongue to the roof of their mouth, and then you notice how much the person's energy level expands, auras. So you actually learn how to scan it, and that's the first validation, if you like, and then but also how people react to you when they experience you with more calm, more presence. And those are some very simple ways to manage your stress in those high stakes moments.
It's really interesting because those are such simple things that make a big difference. So what happens to the negative energy? Like where does it go? Or like what happens to it?
So I told you earlier about the salt water bowl that I have
Yeah.
in my room. Okay. So you need a Hoover to hoover up, like a
To
vacuum
vacuum it
cleaner.
up. Yeah.
This is like an energetic vacuum cleaner that I have in my room. Because even when I talk to clients on Zoom, their energy is in my room.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
cleanse it. Otherwise, you have nightmares on all sorts of things. I dream about my clients if I don't cleanse the energy.
Oh, wow.
So the salt water bowl does that. You can burn incense. Obviously, you're not going to start burning incense at your office if you're in the corporate world.
Yeah.
What you can do also is you can play a mantra on your phone, as long as it's just on one bar. And you can have a mantra that dissolves energy. So the mantra Om, for example, is very good for that. But if people are from different religious backgrounds and they might not like the mantra Om, you can also use other mantras like Amen or Allah or whatever resonates with you. Make sure you check with your spiritual leader that it's a mantra that dissolves dirty energy. Opening the windows, let it dissipate out that way. Prayer. You can ask for whoever you want to connect with in the spiritual realm to cleanse your room as well. And cactuses.
Interesting.
Yes, crystals as well, but you would need to have so crystal healing is pranic healing level 4, where you learn all about crystals and what they can and can't do. There's a lot of stuff out there of what crystals apparently do. And well, in pranic healing, everything you learn, they also teach you how to validate it. And a lot of stuff that's being claimed about crystals, I've never been able to validate with the scanning techniques in pranic healing.
Yeah.
So something to also be aware of. after people take the pranic crystal healing course, they often tend to get rid of most of the crystals in their
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. I think they're pretty. But wait, go back to
Yeah.
the cactus. Like what's going on with cacti?
Yeah. So cacti, if you put a cactus, if your child has nightmares,
Yeah.
you put a cactus in their bedroom,
Uh-huh.
you might find the child has fewer nightmares.
Well,
So the mechanism is explained in the pranic healing courses, but it's something you can already start experimenting with, right? I
yeah.
mean, you and I, we can sit here, speculate about stuff for a
Yeah.
long time. But the most important thing is that with things like this is that people try it out.
Yeah.
And then if you're interested, if you get positive results, which you probably will, then you can learn the mechanism
In the
because
courses,
everything
yeah.
is a science.
Yeah.
Then you get the full download of everything
Yeah.
basically so that you can make sense of it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too because I'm a big believer, again, no surprise what I just said about Catholicism in my childhood, but like
Mm.
I am a big believer in ritual. And ritual can be sitting down to dinner every night, right? Like ritual can be whatever it is for you.
Mm.
But even with the example of cactus, if you bring that into your space, there's something that's triggering inside of you of like, this is going to release an energy. Like you are now, it is a different sense than going to bed at night and just being like, oh, I hope I don't have a nightmare. Like there's something
Mm.
to that as well. I remember when my kids were little, I would take a spray bottle when they were like worried about monsters or stuff like that. And we'd spray the room and it was nothing, right? But it was that process of like, okay, we're safe and we sprayed the room and there's no monsters and that sort of thing. So sometimes it is just the ritual of doing something that's bringing your awareness in a different way. It's taking
Mm-hmm.
it away versus like focusing on the negative or whatever you're worried about. I am
Mm-hmm.
curious about something, and if you can't speak to this, is totally fine. But I do feel like certain cities or areas have like dark or negative energy. Like, I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever been to New Orleans. I love New Orleans, but there is like something there that you feel that's like, whoa, something else is going on here.
Yep.
Can you speak about that at all?
Yes, absolutely. It depends on what happened in these places. And I
Yeah.
actually grew up next to a concentration camp
Mm,
in North Germany. So it's the camp that Anne Frank died
mm,
in. It's called Bergen-Belsen. And I grew up a few kilometers from it as the bird flies. And my grandparents' house was next to our house, and it had been built with bricks that they'd taken from the camp after it was all burned down.
oh my
So,
gosh.
yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, my grandfather was Jewish and he lost his family in
Uh,
another camp, anyways, and it was all very terrible. But, anyways, I remember going into the old kitchen in my grandparents' house. There was just like, it did not feel good there.
yeah.
And my grandmother, she told me I should do not go into that room. There is something there. So, and that is the original part of the house that was built with those bricks. So
Mm,
that's first of all. Then when we were at school, we actually went to the camp with school,
mhm,
and it was horrible. I mean, I wasn't particularly sensitive, but I was sensitive enough to feel that there was something permeating my body, and it felt really horrible. And I could also see the brown energy coming from the fields, so from the mass graves, basically. I remember seeing that, and I was a competitive swimmer at the time with a very fast metabolism, and I was constantly eating all the time. It's like 16 years old or something, an athletic
yeah.
teenager.
Yeah. Yeah.
My parents couldn't afford to feed me, basically. But I could not eat after going to that place. I could not eat for 2 days. And I almost got low blood sugar and had to go to hospital for it. It was quite, anyways, since I learned pranic healing, and there's a course called Psychic Self-Defense, it actually talks about, and there's a book you can buy called Pranic Psychic Self-Defense. And it talks about how places where bad things have happened, like mass murder, like the place I just mentioned, the energy of those places is so dark. Basically, the advice is don't go there
Mhm,
because it will really affect you. It's very like deeply negative energy. And if you do want to go there, make sure you get a pranic healer to give you lots and lots of shields
mhm.
just before you go there, because you need physical shielding, emotional shielding, mental shielding, and spiritual shielding. Otherwise, you get really affected by it. Now, going back to my grandparents' house, there's a lot of violence that happened in that house, right? And you might say, yes, it's because my grandfather had PTSD because he also bad things happened during the war, right? We don't need to talk about the detail, but also there's violence that happened in their house. Then when my brother moved into that house, again, there was violence happening. So there was no violence happening when he lived elsewhere, but when he moved into that house and lived there was violence happening. So it's because the energy of that place was violent energy. So in my parents' house, I was sick a lot as a child, living at my parents' house. Now, when I moved to England in my 20s, I wasn't sick anymore. Then every time I went back to my parents' house and I brought a boyfriend, the boyfriend would get really sick. But these were people who were never sick otherwise. So there was an energy in my parents' house then that made people sick. And what I know now in pranic healing is that when we do healings on small children, especially 2 years and younger, we also usually treat the parents as well, because when small children get very, very sick, it's usually because the parents have been very emotional, negative emotions, notably anger. And what the parents' anger does to the young child is it puts holes into the child's aura, and then negative energies can come in, and the child's immune system isn't strong enough to deal with those negative energies. So yes, we can heal the child very quickly, but then we focus on the psychology of the parents. Now, obviously, we can't tell the parents because they're already super stressed, and then we're not going to tell the parents, oh, it's actually kind of because of your feelings.
Right. Yeah.
No, but that's essentially what happens.
Interesting. Really interesting. Well, this has been such an interesting conversation. And is there anything, I'm just looking at my notes, is there anything we didn't talk about today that you want to make sure people hear?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk a little bit about finding fulfillment in work, right? The so-called high status work was no longer interesting for me. I'm just now so much happier with the pranic healing, but also it wasn't a complete reinvention, because everything that made me successful as an investment banker it's still within me. It's still, the tenacity is still there, right? I still keep talking about pranic healing, even if people think that I've gone nuts.
Right.
The drive is still there. I'm just channeling it in a different way. So anybody thinking about a career pivot or changing things in their life, it's not that whatever you've done before, you let go of it completely and it's wasted time. You will still use whatever has helped you, the real things that have helped you be successful in your previous career, in whatever you're choosing to try out next. So hopefully that can encourage some people to give it a go.
I always say this, like, you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. You get to choose what you take with you, and you get to choose what you leave behind. Like, that's totally up to you. So I love that. I love that you're not denying yourself, you're channeling those different attributes in a different way, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, you're just igniting something within yourself that was previously dormant. And you're turning maybe something that was previously ignited into a dormant state to accelerate your evolution as a human being.
Yeah. And I talk about this a lot, but we are not separate from nature. We are nature, and nature evolves, and there's different cycles, and so we don't have to stay the same our entire lives. It would be very boring. But so what do you love most about what you do?
What I love most about what I do is that pranic healing is something that everybody can learn. And even though I'm not an instructor, I support an instructor here in London who teaches the basic pranic healing course. And it's just so fulfilling to see these people empower themselves, because everybody can learn pranic healing. My children.
Yeah.
They experience it on almost a weekly basis, right? They get a cut and they say, heal my cut, or they can't sleep. And I do pranic healing within 5 minutes they're asleep. So my older child, he's 12 now. He's like, when can I learn it? When can I learn the magic? He says.
I love that.
4 more years. You have to be 16 to learn it. But even if you're not 16 yet, you can already benefit from the meditations and really learn how to become the boss of your feelings.
Mhm.
And it's just incredibly empowering. So I love obviously working with executives and helping them in their careers, but it's also very, very fulfilling to help the young people manage their emotions and then help people realize that pranic healing is not just some gift that some people have and other people don't. It's something that everybody can learn.
That's really cool. And what advice would you give to your younger self?
To trust myself more. I spent too much time questioning myself because I was different from everybody else.
Yeah.
But actually, as soon as I had my children and I cared less about what other people thought about me,
Mhm.
and I was just stepping into my true self,
Mhm.
everything became a lot easier. My career skyrocketed when I became more empathetic with people at work.
Mhm.
And yeah, so if I'd only started trusting myself earlier, life would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. And how can people find you and work with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn
Mhm.
as Bianca Riemer. So my surname is spelled Riem for mother ER.
Mhm.
I also have a website that's called biancariemer.com. And on Instagram, I am Relax in London.
Well, we'll put all of that in the show notes. Bianca, thank you so much for spending so much time today. Just a really fascinating conversation. And I appreciate you sharing your experiences and your expertise and taking so much time to walk us through it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Megan. I'm always so passionate about sharing about pranic healing. And I hope, that as many people as possible will give it a go and try it out.
Absolutely.